Hey guys, I'm so glad that you can join me in the third video of this series. And this video, all we're going to be doing is adding these widgets and customizing these widgets to our calculator screen. Now, technically we do not need this main app.py anymore. We have set everything up, so we can actually just get rid of this like that, and we can just focus entirely on this calculator screen.py. So all we're going to do is create another comment and add background to app like that. Now another function that we're going to have to go create is def create UI. Elements, that's what we can call it, is going to be creating the elements. So the first thing that we're going to be creating is, of course, the calculator label right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go call it app label. That's going to be the name of the variable, at least app label, and it's going to be mdn label. So let me show you real quick. From DMP, modern label, import mdn label. Let's get to it. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is the font color. Of course, it should already be white by default, but you never know. So we're going to do font color equals, and the color for white is 250, 250, and 250. Everybody should know that from the top of their heads, because it's just a common color. Font size we're going to use actually is going to be a bit larger, and it's going to be mdn font size, we'll use 35 just in case. And then we're going to use font style right here, which in this case you could make it either be bold or italic, but for this case, we're going to just do bold like this. And the size. One thing is, if we do not put a size, it's going to take up the entire screen, and we don't want that. So we want the size to take up the entire width, but the height, we're going to just do probably 150 units. And units is the unit that these dependencies use, so they don't actually use pixels, instead they use units. Now, we have to go add this to our background. Now one thing is we don't have access to our background in this function. But one thing is in the screen we have a self.mdn screen IDs right here. All I have to do is create a key and then assign it a value. And the value is going to be this grid layout right here. So now by using this, we can actually access our background. Now we can do mdn add widget, and we are going to just add our app label to our background. And one thing that I completely forgot is we have no text. So let's just quickly add that by doing mdn.text equal to whatever you want, but we're going to put calculator, and we can put calculator app. So now that we have put this, I realized that there's one more little problem with it, and that is this create UI elements. We're actually not calling it. So we can go back into our init UI. So we're going to go create our UI elements right here. So we're going to call create UI elements. And now if we run this, everything should work. And you can see right here, it says my calculator app like that. Now it's time to add the text input. And we're going to call this equation input. It's going to be used by the mdn text input like this. So that means we're going to have to import this again. So let's go real quick. From depend modern input like this, import mdn input. And I think I did text input. That's not what we want. So we're going to do self.mdn app. Also, there's going to be a couple other things, and one of them would be the use hover UI. We actually do not want to use any hover UI, so we're going to do false. Also, it's going to ask, do you want to use focus UI, which we do not want to use any UI when we are focusing on the text input. So we're also going to do false. Another parameter that we're going to adjust is going to be the size, of course, because, well, the size is very important. And we are just going to make this be 80% of our screen and maybe 150 units high. We're going to have a placeholder, call it MDN placeholder, because that's the name of it. And it's going to be 0. So this is just what's going to initially start off in our input right here. And then we're also going to have MDN placeholder color because, well, it's color. We just don't want a boring old white. And that's going to be yellow. So you can go online to Google and you can go to color picker. And then just select any color that you want to choose from. I'm going to choose a more orangish yellow, more of a dandelion. And I'm just going to copy the RGB right here, paste that in, put one at the end. Another thing that we're going to have to update is going to be MDN multi-line, because by default it's true, but we don't want it to be true, we want it to be false. So it's going to be one line. Another thing that we're going to have to change is the button visibility. And we're going to set that to false. And then also we're going to go change the MDN text align, and we are going to set that to right. Now the last thing that we're going to have to set for this input, I know this is a lot, is the MDN background. And here I have a little typo I can see, so I have to delete that. And there we go. So here's the code. Desktop, tablet, mobile, all 30, 30, 30. But when we're focused, it's going to be 50, 50, 50. So it's going to be slightly lighter than when it's not in focus. You can change the color. You can make it be green, red, purple, whatever. But this is how it's going to work. And we're going to say use focus UI, and that's going to be set to true. Now one thing is we have to create our relative layout, because this just won't work without our relative layout. So we're going to create another widget and call it relative layout, like so. And it's saying that we don't have it imported, so we have to import that real quick. And thankfully, this is just a regular kivy UIX widget. So it's just going to be relative layout, import relative layout. So there's going to be no cool features with this, but hey, cool features take a lot of time to adjust, as you can clearly tell. And then we're just going to go add widget, and we're going to add the equation input to this equation input relative layout like this. The reason we have this relative layout is so we can technically position and center this in the middle of our screen, because this has to be centered on our app, and right now it's not centered. So how we can do that is do position hint, and this takes a dictionary, and center X, so we're going to center it horizontally by 0.5, so that's going to be exactly the middle, and then center Y, and that's going to be the exact middle vertically. So let's run this real quick. Actually before we can even run it, we have to add it to our screen, otherwise, it's just not going to work. So we have our app label, and then we have our equation input relative layout. So if I turn that off, rerun, we have a little error, and it's saying MDN focused, and looks like we do need this. So we're just going to do false for now. Problem is, well, it's supposed to be a dictionary. So H align, which means horizontally align, and we want this right. So like that. Also, the MDN focused should be true, so we can actually go focus. So let's run this. And everything works like that. And you can see we have this. This looks like a bit too high. I didn't think 150 was going to be so high. And our code is getting a bit disorganized, so let's get this smaller so you can see what's going on. We have our label right here. We have our inputs field right here, and we're adding these to the screen as well, like so. So we're adding the widgets to our screen. Now it's time to go add the buttons.